quite something, isn't it? The Yas Marina circuit here in Abu Dhabi. That's the Yas Hotel. And when the cars get on track, you will see that they snake their way right in between that hotel, under a little flybridge. And I mentioned earlier that the Middle East love their motorsport. They've got a thing for V8 supercars as well, and they're all lined up and ready to attack this circuit.
Exit open. Exit is open. Team manning, we have a green light.
So the silly season is officially over, because now it is time to get down to business for the 2010 V8 Supercar Championship. Welcome to our viewers right around the world. I'm Matt White in commentary here with Neil Crompton and Mark Scaife. Mark Larkham is in pit lane. This is the Yas V8 400 in Abu Dhabi, and this is something we've never seen before either. The cars leaving pit lane via a tunnel underneath the circuit proper, and then they pop out at the other side. It looks nice and neat now, but wait until race conditions.
Well, the 40k marker actually stops as you go down that hill, Matt, and it's a very interesting exit, Crompo.
It is. There are lots of talking points related to this racetrack, and we'll get into a lot of detail about it. 4.7 kilometres. We've snipped 1 kilometre off the Grand Prix circuit here for the V8 version. We're using the corkscrew for the first time. That's that complex you see, turns 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Top speed, as Mark mentioned earlier in the broadcast, 265 k's. Slowest corner, turn 8, first gear, about 60 k's. As always, there are 3 timing sectors. The first intermediate ends at the yellow point there in the braking area into turn 8. The second intermediate is effectively just turns 8, 9 and a squirt down to turn 11, and the final sector of the racetrack quite complex, and so you may find that somebody's done a great job in sectors 1 or 2, and it won't necessarily translate in the third sector. We saw that a lot in practice yesterday because of the complexity of the racetrack in the back third of it.
And Neil, talking to some of the engineers up and down the pit lane this morning, I mean, some of the issues that are going to emerge in this session, firstly being only 20 minutes, you're probably going to get 2 sets of tyres on, which means a 2-lap run and a 3-lap run. Now, while this is a long circuit, traffic is going to be a big issue. There is more grip here on this surface than anticipated. What that has meant is people have generally stiffened their cars up a little, but the trade-off there is the cars are not going to be as aggressive, or they're going to be very aggressive, sorry, on the bumps and curves. The other one is the tyre life. There's negligible tyre wear here, so you can actually set your car up quite aggressive in that it should turn really, really well, and I think that's going to be a good thing to see. And finally is guys taking the mickey. That is, they're going to be very strict if you cross your 4 tyres over one of those white lines. Now, there's a nice little time game to be had there, so watch very closely for that.
Well, that was a pretty good view there from Mark Winterbottom, 5th in the championship of 2009. I mentioned the silly season's now officially over, because we all know that a race weekend starts right now at qualifying. Practice is fine, it's a shakedown. It's a bit of a chest beating exercise. Qualifying is absolutely everything. And there's so many questions for us to start asking. How will HRT cope with Team Vodafone coming across to Holden? What about Garth Tander? He was red hot towards the end of last year. In fact, nobody scored more points than this man from Phillip Island onwards. So he put together a back end of a championship that could well have won it for him. He ended up 3rd. What about the Blue Oval? They're outnumbered this year. How will they react? What about the rookies? We've got 4 starting today with their main game debuts. And what about this circuit? It now means that this is an even playing field for all. They've all come here for the first time.
One of the other questions that I've asked myself, and I'll be curious to see the answer at the end of the day, is that we're qualifying now in the peak of the heat here. There's a lot of ultraviolet out there. It's, you know, you walk outside and it's the full-blown squint. Now, by the time they go racing, good 4 or 5 hours away, it'll be in the shadows, the lights will come on, the track temperature will drop enormously. The danger, Mark, is that you tune to one condition and you race in another, and that will be a real handful for drivers and engineers.
That's absolutely right, Neil. The evening temperature's cooler, the track grip is up, and we saw Van Gisbergen and Whincup in the low 58s yesterday. There is no way under that scenario, when it's hotter, they'll have the same level of grip. You can see Garth Tander there battling to get the car to the apex at turn 17. The great thing about this, as he goes in under the Yas Hotel, it's an amazing facility, but one of the great things about this is we loved this 20-minute session last year. This is now a 20-minute session. We've taken the first effective segment out of it. They're all in together, 20 minutes, and then there's a top 10 shootout after this.
That's right, so we've taken one complete sequence out and it makes this very frantic. Everybody's got to find their own little slice of the road here. Looking on the data on the racetrack at the moment, there's an awful lot of cars very close to each other. We've got to be working so hard not to fumble at each other.
That's a pretty good lap time, 59.46, and Lowndes now with a 59.12. For the conditions that Neil was talking about, for their first run on green tyres, the guys have improved these cars. I didn't expect this lap time at this part of this session.
This is Rick Kelly looking from his helmet.
Oh!
And he's a busy boy. There are several places around this location where they're incredibly busy. The wheel work, the direction changes of the car, and yesterday probably saw more evil handling cars than we've seen for a long time as everybody came up to speed with the right settings on the cars to get them working. That was a big slide there for Rick in turn 20. This is the final corner. Pit straight, all the garages are on the right.
Okay, info mode, Lowndes with a 59.1.
So this will give you a good indication of this circuit as we go for a bell with Rick Kelly. Just check out this replay of that moment that you mentioned. He will not be the last man to do that this weekend.
There was a lot of this yesterday. A lot of guys talking about oversteer. That's when the back of the car's sliding, as Rick graphically demonstrates. This is turn 4. This is where we peel away from the Grand Prix circuit and work down through this corkscrew. Second gear, down to turn 6 and 7.
Quite
and then they straddle the painted white lines at 7, and then this very fast run down to a big braking application into 8. And that's the support paddock and garage area on the right. Lowndes fastest with a 59.1. Garth Tander position 2. Shane Van Gisbergen is 3, and his sector splits at the moment are indicating that he could improve on that.
59.13 on P2.
So slightly faster. Alistair McVeigh there talking, that's an engineering change we referred to earlier. Alistair was on Will Davison's car last year. They've swapped the guys around. He's on Garth Tander's car, and he was just saying to Garth, you've made a change there. The gain was about 0.3 of a second.
Whee!
And as we were just speaking, Jamie Whincup has the first break of 58.98 as Steve Richards' guy rates.
And so too
Ricky Adello turns around at turn 4.
So Whincup now has the fastest lap of this session, 1:58.98. He leads the way from his teammate. Then Garth Tander, then Lee Holdsworth. Still weird, isn't it, to see the red box next to Whincup and Lowndes instead of the blue box like we're used to, but we'll get used to these changes as the year goes on. And Jamie's going to go back to back because he's posted the fastest first sector time as well.
Scapey, you and I both spoke to Roland Dane this morning. He contributed their early speed here this weekend more to his drivers than he did to his cars. I mean, what are the sorts of things these guys have done to get on top of their game over the other blokes to contribute that to the drivers, do you think?
Oh, look, I think, Lucko, the guys that are red hot, the guys that are really, really good at getting their brain around new circuits. Yesterday we saw Whincup, Lowndes, Tander, and probably Caruso and Van Gisbergen really dominant very, very quickly. And as you can see, Whincup now up 0.3 of a second on the lap that he had already done, which was fastest. Big understeer and runs wide over the AstroTurf. That would have hurt him a little bit, Croppo.
Just run wide, Dado, in this lap.
He's aboarded the lap.
Mate, copy that, saw that, in this lap. Thank you, nice work.
It was nice work, and that's a big margin on everybody at the moment. Incidentally, it's always tricky to pick team cars where their graphics are near identical. So the front of Jamie's car, apart from having the obvious number 1 on it carried over from last year, is bright orange, same hue as the rest of the car, whereas Craig's car in the grill area is black. Here it is again in replay. Watch this. It launches off the curb. Ooh. 2 wheels, and eventually it was he carried too much speed and understeered wide.
He had it on rails for most of that lap. He was flying.
Oh, that's a moment for Jonathan Webb. This young fellow did very well in the development series last year. He had a great test at Queensland Raceway and a good opening strong day yesterday.
Stephen Johnson re-signed with his dad's team for another couple of years, racing under the team over here in the Middle East because of alcohol sponsorship restrictions. And it will be interesting again. Another question, just what will it mean to them to have the Ford backing back in their pocket this year.
Well, it's great to see Ford stepping up. Well, first of all, the president from the Ford Motor Company of Australia is here this weekend. We're going to try and catch up with him. They've appointed a motorsport manager in Chris Styring, who was formerly involved with the Williams Formula One team, and they've stepped up with some investment in teams and reacquainted themselves in the relationship with Dick Johnson, and that's great news for the category. It's great news for Ford and their teams.
So Stephen Johnson, 2-minute flat. Jamie Whincup leads the timesheets. He's in pit lane at the moment. So too is Garth Tander. In fact, the top 9 guys are all just sitting it out for the minute. We're looking for the top 20 for this qualifying session, and then we'll have ourselves a top 10 shootout in the Middle East for the V8 supercars. Well, let's head down, and flat out we go. Russell Ingall piloting the Super Cheap Auto entry, brand new car to start the season. One of 6 brand spankers this weekend. His new teammate Greg Murphy won't be here this weekend, so he'll have his team boss next to him in car 51, Paul Morris. Garth Tander is in pit lane. He's 3rd on the timesheets. You can see Team Vodafone are determined to make a statement early on. Mark Winterbottom is the leading forward. For you Blue Oval fans, he's 4th on the list. Time to beat 158.98. And if you want to get inside the top 20, you need to go better than 2 minutes, .53, which belongs to Jonathan Webb.
Tim Slade's done a pretty good job there, Matt. He's actually 11th at the moment with the 59.9. We referred to their team running a 3rd car at Stone Brothers Racing under Wilson Security, and for him to be 11th early in the session is a very good job after an engine failure yesterday. As we pick up on Steve Johnson, he's actually driving the car very hard, but it just doesn't look like it's got much pace, Neil. It doesn't look sharp enough at the front. It looks a bit lame when he first turns, and it doesn't actually have that real precision that you need at a circuit like this.
It's remarkable. The majority of the field is in now. They're making changes and fitting their next tyre set. There's only 3 cars active on the racetrack. Will Davison, Carl Reindler, Paul Morris. Now a couple of others are filtering out there, as you can see. This is turn 11.
Yeah, Neil, just to add to your comment there, mate, I'm up here with 888, and typically, as we said earlier on, this is about the drivers. They've come in, a good chat with their engineers, but no changes to either of the cars, just tyres. Now, Garth Tander's car, I've noticed they've just changed the squat on the rear of the car. They're the trailing arms that hold the diff off. Now, they won't, or hold the diff on, sorry, they won't actually show me what they're doing, but I can see they're in what's called the full anti-squat position. So what that really saying to us is they've got more rear grip they can use. They can make the car turn better. It's a little bit lazy at the front, so expect something here.
What that does, Larko, sometimes is when you make that rear trailing arm change and you go to that full anti-squat position, when you brake the car, it doesn't actually have the rear of the car come up as much. So in heavy braking areas, it will help the straight-out braking as we go on board with Will Davison. Will not on a great lap there at the moment. He's a full second slower than Whincup. This will be a sort of an outlap or a change proper that they would have made to the car before they put their next set on.
A verification run.
Just got to get a little feel for what the car's like, just see whether he comes in or not. Yeah, coming in. So he's gone out, made a little change. I don't think he'd be happy clearly on that lap time, but maybe the feel of the car is okay.
And just to explain that, tyre management is critical. Obviously, you've got to try and keep as many good tyres up your sleeve so that when you do pull the trigger, you've got what you need underneath you. So what Will and Matt Nilsson have done there, I've got to get my head around that engineering switch at HRT, is that they've made some changes. They go out with the existing tyre set on, decide whether it's better, worse or no change, comment on it. If they're happy with what they've got, they can then bolt the other tyre set on. There are a total of 20 brand new Dunlop control tyres available to the guys over the course of this weekend. That's 5 sets.
Lee Holdsworth and his teammate Michael Caruso have been piggybacking each other since the very first practice sessions, and here they are again in positions 5 and 6. I'm just looking down the timesheets, gents. Outside the top 20 at the moment, Stephen Richards in 21st, Tony D'Alberto in 22nd, and Rick Kelly there in 23rd position. You'll see it on your leaderboard as we click through. So we're looking for the top 20, remember. The top 10 to go through. There you go, those changes, they get you, don't they? Top 10 to go through. So that A lot of these guys down the bottom are going to have to get a wriggle on. There's only 5 minutes and 15 seconds remaining.
And we need to keep an eye on Jamie Whincup here because he's got a new set of tyres on this car. We heard Mark Dutton refer to it and he said, go out, get yourself sorted. And at the second split, he's up half a second on himself. And that puts him, assuming he puts together the nice third sector of the lap, somewhere in the mid-58 region, which is not too far from where he was yesterday in cooler conditions in late practice.
58.22 was the time set by Shane Van Gisbergen. He's all over this one, Whincup. A la that last lap that we saw him aboard.
You notice he didn't attack quite so much there in the right-hander approaching the hotel. Last time when we were following him, he understeered wide at that location. He's picking up the rev limiter there as it's out of breath.
It looks sharp. The front of the car looks very sharp. To get the car to the corner very quickly. The characteristic that they had in Fordland is carried over into Holdenland.
8.2, that's quick.
Yeah, that's a very fast time. That's as fast as the guys went yesterday. Van Gisbergen was second fastest and ended up with the lap time that was taken away from Whincup, ended up fastest last night. So here's Van Gisbergen and goes to second with a 58.4. Very good job.
Young Shane last night did a 1 minute 58.22. So Jamie's lap is the fastest we've ever seen from a V8 supercar around here, but it's only a tiny margin, Marco.
Boys, Garth Tander's going to have to do a good job. He's just lost a full lap. He's gone out a little late. There's a joining gap here on the pit lane between the concrete. I don't know if you can see here. It's actually like an elastic rubber. The air jack went down into there and actually got stuck. They had to get jacks under the car to lift it up, ties it up off that silicon rubber. Very interesting.
Yeah, we get caught with little things like that, Larko, and it just takes the little edge off making sure you can get out and get 2 laps. So Garth's out there now with only 3 minutes 15 remaining in this session, and you need to be able to get those 2 laps to get the best result into the top 10 shootout. He's currently 5th.
James Courtney has bought into this argument big time. He's up to 3rd. So the top 10 is this with 3 minutes to go. Whincup, Van Gisbergen, James Courtney, Craig Lowndes. Paul Dumbrell has come from the very bottom of the timesheets up into the top 10. Look at it changing now. Tander's there, Caruso, Ingle and Holdsworth.
Yeah, we lost a good bit of time going onto the straight there. It just, as I changed gears, it just wouldn't change and then jumped out slightly.
James Courtney in the background there talking about a gearing problem. Now Tander's showing great speed with the fastest split so far of 40.6 to intermediate 1. So his first sector was very good on the run down to turn 8. And Gisbergen locked up and wide.
At the back end, do you want me to come in or is that enough or do we need another shot? At C2 there, mate, we've got time. Let's cool us for the rest of this lap and get a run and we'll have a crack at another lap, eh?
And Tander continues to move the marker. He's now a 1 minute 3.49 to the second intermediate, but it looks like he's sniffing onto the back of some traffic here.
And that first 2 segments will suit Garth. He's a very good braker, Neil. So those 2 segments will definitely look after him as he gets caught having to go up the inside. Steve Richards did a very good job then to move it offline, right off the racetrack to allow Garth through. So this last complex segment 3 that Neil's been referring to is a very accurate, very difficult section of road as he comes up behind Jonathan Webb to finish this lap off. Turn 20. In 3rd gear.
And he's right on the bubble. He's 10th at the moment. This has got to be an improvement for him because he could get knocked off.
He'll come up. He'll definitely come up.
The question is how high, Scafie? It's going to be close. Second, Tander. But look at the time of Craig Lowndes. Lowndes is currently in 9th. He's got 2 green boxes next to his name. About to complete his flying lap. Around turn 21 he comes. Team Vodafone. Now on the general side, and can Craig Lowndes push it up to 4th? So he joins his teammate in the top 10. Jamie Whincup is out of the car in pit lane, comfortable with his position. And how's that for a start to the season? Into the top 10 shootout, thank you very much. Will Davison. 2 orange boxes mean 2 personal best. Split times. Finishes it, puts it into 6th. So a nervous 30 seconds for these guys.
Jason Bright is 10th at the moment. Paul Dumbrell's just been bumped outside the top 10. Michael Caruso and Russell Ingall are just outside as well.
Ooh, big slide there for Will Davison out of turn 2. Around turn 3, you can see him working very, very hard, trying to get it turned into turn 4. Down into the corkscrew. As we pick up on Van Gisbergen, who's about 0.2 of a second slower than the Wing Cup time, which are 58.20. It's about the same lap time as he's already done, as a 58.4 was 0.2 slower. Just have a look at where Van Gisbergen finishes now. I don't think with that tyre quality and a big exit oversteer onto the AstroTurf, that will have cost him time. Right. So 59.15, that's a long way away from where he was.
I think we're pretty safe at P3 there. I don't think anybody else is going to jump up at this stage. Everybody's done their run on time.
Nothing's changed with the Giz then, has it? Since 2009? Just let it rip.
So Lowndes isn't too far away from that lap time at 0.07, but again, tyre quality's not that good. He's backed it off now, I think. So Wing Cup tandem, Van Gisbergen, Lowndes, Winterbottom, Davison, Courtney, Alex Davison, great job in 8th. Lee Holdsworth and Jason Bright round out your top 10.
Zinger replay.
Big slide for Lowndes. Great car control through turn 16 into 17. Now having to slow the car down back to first gear. Very difficult. Great job to get it into that corner from such a fast entry. So Paul Dumbrell just got knocked off, Matt, there into 11th spot. Right after that is Michael Caruso, Russell Ingall, Steve Johnson and Jason Bargwanna. They're your next 5 down to 15th.
There were a couple of guys still closing off their laps. Russell Ingall was one of them, but he couldn't get himself inside the top 10. So these will be your shootout contenders. Wing Cup first on the list means he'll go out last. He got 6 pole positions en route to the championship last year. He's the man to watch. Gartana, Van Gisbergen, Lowndes, Winterbottom, Will Davison, James Courtney and Alex Davison, and then Lee Holdsworth and Jason Bright for the Trading Post entry. Paul Dumbrell just misses out, so too, as I mentioned, Russell Ingall. Jonathan Webb, pretty good effort in his first full-time series drive for Dick Johnson Racing. He's in 16th position. Todd Kelly, brand new car, 21st. Bit of work to do. So too for Stephen Richards. Top 10 shootout coming up at the Yas Marina circuit. It's time to determine our first pole sitter for 2010. And this unique side of a V8 supercar ducking under the circuit proper through the tunnel. And at Brad Jones Racing, they've got a lot to smile about for Jason Bright. The Trading Post entry, driving a Holden for the first time since 2004, Brighty, and it's a good way to make a good statement.
And the image of the man that you saw in the centre of the garage there, we're looking at the back of his head, was Phil Keed, his engineer, and he's come across from Ford Performance Racing. They've been a successful combination in the past. Here's the lineup of those that will participate, beginning with Jason Bright, working our way down to the reigning champion, Jamie Whincup. Very hot out there at the moment. It's just a whisker under 30 degrees air temperature. The track temperature is just over 42 degrees at the moment. And as I said to Mark a little bit earlier in the broadcast, curiosity for me here will be, you've got to go out there and put your best foot forward now in qualifying and pull together a sub 2-minute lap, looking at Brad Jones, team owner. And then, Scafey, you've got to readjust your mind and the car around vastly different conditions in the latter part of the day when these shadows grow longer and the lights come on.
Yeah, and look, the grip is actually better than we thought it would be. The guys have made improvements to the cars. They've worked in a completely different set of circumstances compared to last night, and we'll have to tune the cars again for the race later in the telecast.
Yeah, Scapey, and you're dead right. They've got a completely different set of circumstances now, and the common thread right along this pit lane is everyone is trying to settle their cars down. They're not the same as they are in those cold, grippier conditions. So what they're doing is softening things on, adjusting them. In the case of Jason Bright's car, his engineer Phil Keith put it very nicely. They're trying to slow down the rear of the car and fasten up the front.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. Gee, yesterday, I don't think I've ever seen such a large percentage of the field affected by oversteer when the back of the car is sliding. We saw guys delicately changing the direction of their car, offering up tiny amounts of steering angle, and quickly the rear of the car would disappear on them. So now Very important lap for Jason Bright to put down a marker to start his 2010 campaign. He's been through the ringer in his own racing operation at Brytech. He's popped out the other side now. Brad Jones has grabbed him. The curb cam for Dunlop shows just how wild the ride is at turn 2 and up to this shortened part of the racetrack to the corkscrew.
We can hear that tearing of the tyre, the understeer.
Now this is the run down to the first timing intermediate. It's in the braking area approaching turn 8, which is the slowest corner on the racetrack. This run here is good for about 250 kilometres an hour. Then it's back to first gear, 60 kilometres an hour. And there's a short, sharp direction change with that little curve that makes the car hop in the middle. Turn 9, and then a gentle left-hander where you're essentially flat at 10. Past the support paddock area, up against the area where the hotels flank this complex, and 265 kilometres an hour on the run down to turn 11.
He's one of the most experienced men in the field and, of course, in the top 10 shootout. But 8 out of the top 10 guys today had pole position at least once in 2009. Bright did it at Phillip Island, and here he is trying to post a competitive time first up. It must be something unique to have this incredible circuit all to yourself.
His splits look very good for this time of day. 40.8 in the first split, 1 minute 4.03 in the second split, and Mark, the car behaviour from our vantage point doesn't look too bad at the moment. We heard some tyre tearing on the road, but we haven't seen the car jump out from under him at all.
No, it looks very smooth. He's very good at these sorts of laps. He keeps the momentum up. You can see him just working the car everywhere just to keep the flow going. Jason's been successful at this in the past as he comes up to this finish line to record the first lap, and a very good lap time of 58.90. A very good point there, Crompo. That was a good split, especially second split. I didn't think the first split was that great because a mid-40 is sort of lap time you need to do, but after that, to finish the lap off in that complex segment 3 of the lap, he did a very, very good job.
Well, just to refer to his qualifying lap that got him into this shootout, he did a 59.1, so he's gone better in his standing start shootout lap. Oh, I don't want to grow up and be a front tyre. That is a very good lap time from Jason Bright, and that'll put him in very good stead with this group of guys as they roll their laps off.
Listen to this thing. It's screaming at Lee Holdsworth, which is exactly what he wants it to do.
Well, it is, but sometimes you've actually got to go faster, Matt. You've actually got to do what he's doing now, which is actually load it going faster, because when they scream and they tear like that, it actually doesn't do anything. You don't actually get any temperature because you've actually got to go faster to get that front tyre in.
Boys, this car of Lee Holdsworth, I've been down the pit lane, as we said, and we can go through them as they roll out. Everyone's tried to settle their cars down, soften them off at the rear. This is the only car that's actually tried to perhaps sharpen the thing up a little bit. They've actually dropped the front ride height a little bit, which will give it a little more downforce, give it a little more front grip in the high-speed corners. That'll have to be a fairly aggressive lap in these conditions.
Lee's one of the young guys in the field who had some success last year, and he's just trying to break through now for that next serious solid step that makes him a constant front-running contender. And he's got great engineering support with Richard Holway joining this group of guys.
Down to turn 1 he goes.
The car looks great, doesn't it, guys? I mean, I love the
visuals.
The livery, it looks fantastic. It's nice and clean. Valvoline with the team for a long time, and Cummins and Fujitsu on the car for the first time this year.
Now, Lee got into this shootout with a lap time of 1:59.05. Everybody's got their own methodology with how they set their car for this one lap. They sacrifice typically a little bit of the drive, try and make the car as pointy as they dare, as responsive to the steering wheel as they can make it. Your starting pressures, the cold tyre starting pressures are critical, hoping that the tyres temp up and pressure up correctly. That's turn 9. Oh, it just snaps sideways as he picked the throttle up. With a 3.25 to 1 diff ratios in the car, it's the second tallest diff ratio we have. First gear, amazingly enough, breaks the Australian regular speed limit, 112 kilometres an hour before you pull second gear. So the cars are really travelling very quickly, even in the low gears around here.
Gained some time back on Bright at the second sector. And in the third sector, looking at the way the car is, Mark Larkham's point about making it sharper at the front, I think he might actually end up, as we watch him come past our Dunlop curb cam there, that's a very fast section of turn 16 into 17. Looks very smooth in this last sector. Oh.
massive understeer there through 19. A lot of people have been having trouble through that 16-17 region, haven't they? They're rushing in, the car's just wandering wide at the apex.
Coming around for the final turn, so Lee Holdsworth, 2 pole positions in 2009. He finished off last year with pole on the streets of Homebush Bay at Sydney Olympic Park, second, 1:59.35, so about half a second adrift of Jason Bright.
Didn't have any regret.
The Zinger replay will probably confirm that too. Up on 2 wheels.
That would have cost him time there, Matt, that piece there. And as you can see, at the second last corner, very wide, used every bit of road. Hard to get the cars on that first lap to do the things the drivers want from them. Alex Davison in the Irwin Tools entry has been very competitive all weekend. He was fastest in the first 2 practice sessions yesterday. He ended up right at the top of the timesheets and has been there all weekend, Neil. The car looks good. He's driving the car well. He's got a very experienced engineer in Dave Stewart with him this year. And I think he actually could be one of the real improvers.
Yeah, I think so. And we saw glimpses last year where Alex came to the fore. It's been, as always, a big learning curve to come from other categories where you've been successful. And Alex did so well overseas as a Porsche driver, now in the second full-time season in V8 supercar racing. And like the fellow that preceded him on the racetrack, he too got married over the summer period. Congratulations, Alex and Melanie.
So, over the control line. First turn, left-handed. The circuit is so wide to what we're used to, but then again so narrow in some spots. And the turns quite tight. And this big fall away, the corkscrew that he's coming up towards, dips away to the left-hand here. Dramatic elevation. You don't realise it when you're doing it, but when you get down the bottom and look back up, you go, oh, it's 10 or 15 metres up there.
Exactly.
Especially looked that way when Scapey was looking back up the hill yesterday from underneath that Jack Daniels car.
Trying to push it back up. So the first marker belongs to Jason Bright. He was the first man out, 40.8. Alex does 41.1, so he's in the game.
The behaviour of these cars, eyeballing them from afar yesterday, straight away for both Alex Davison and his teammate Shane van Gisbergen. The cars looked nice and settled on the road. They transferred their weight nicely. They soaked up those curbs on the inside quite well.
It's looking just a little bit tame. That was a left-hand rear tyre that was struggling for grip as he turned in through that right and left complex. And as he comes up to this fast section, which is really the highlight of the lap for the drivers, through 16, get it slowed down now, back to first gear. Big 2-wheel moment that we referred to there yesterday when he bumped that curb, and you can hear the tyres still scraping and battling for grip. Out of turn 19, used all the road right out to the fence, and up to the 2 last right-handers to complete this lap. He's not far away from Bright. And as we said, this last segment of the lap is very technical and very difficult, so it'll be hard to read whether he's been able to achieve a better lap time.
The tyres had come on through the lap a bit, and the back half of it ended up with a 9.4.
So Bright's last sector, in comparison with Holdsworth and Alex Davison's, actually very, very good.
I'll direct you when you get into pit lane.
Yeah, if Jason Bright's going to hold on to this time, it'll be the first and last sectors that he'll look back on, because
Bright's
it fell away there for Alex.
Already made gains over where he qualified, so this is all profit for Jason Bright at the moment.
Absolutely. James Courtney, good on street circuits. Pretty good anywhere. He's actually very, very committed. He's a guy that tries very hard. He's got very good car control. And he is a guy that you always see use the very last amount of grip everywhere, as we pick up on Jason Bright there doing a little review with the engineers.
Scapey, and the thing they've done to prepare James's car for this run is actually those trailer arms we talked about on Garth's car. They've actually brought those back the other way from anti-squat on these, to soften the rear of the car a little bit. And in fact, that's also what they did do on Garth's, to try and tidy up the rear end, slow it down.
Yeah, and that usually makes the car put its power down a little better. It makes the back of the car come up a little higher, so they turn in. You can see that turn in into turn 1 there. The car was very abrupt to get it to the corner. And the other thing it does is it just slightly tames the back of the car in terms of the way the rear of the car steers. So we just get a good view there out of turn 4 and 5 into 6 down through the corkscrew. A great shot from behind. Matty White just referred to the elevation changes, probably 10 or 12 metres from the top of that to the bottom as he comes down to turn 8. Super deep braking area and faster, 0.2 of a second faster than Jason Bright. Great job, looked very clean there, James Courtney.
James got into this shootout on a time of 1:58.89. The marker reference at the moment set by Jason Bright of 58.9. And a 2/10 gain to the first sector is very good. The best times that we saw to the second split yesterday only got into the high 3s.
And up again. That's a very good second sector, a 3.77.
Yeah, so that's
very, very fast.
That's benchmark. That's what we saw. That was as good as anything that was cranked out yesterday.
Now he's coming towards the busy part of the circuit, turn 15.
Now this will be the bit that makes or breaks it. This is fast and committed. He's very good through this stuff normally.
He sacrificed quite a lot of track on the left-hand side of the car then to try and just ease the car quickly to the apex.
Second gear then too, Neil. Didn't use first gear. Left it in second and made the car flow.
2 race wins for James Courtney last season, but no pole positions. He's right on it here in Abu Dhabi.
Rubbed right up against that AstroTurf then. I think he just overcooked slightly at turn 20.
But he had time in the bank. How much did it eat away?
Great job.
1:58.67. He's at the top.
Good work, pal. Currently P1. Nice work.
Was good work too. Beautiful. Great job.
It's a very good lap. They're very hard, those sorts of laps around big, fast, open places like this. And as Neil Crompton picked up at the second last corner, he got very wide, just made the AstroTurf, had a little slide.
He got away with it because the load was off the car. You saw the steering wheels actually straighten up right at the point where he rode the green stuff and therefore got away with it.
So Courtney leads the way. 4 men down, 6 still to come. After the break, Will Davison from the Toll Holden Racing Team will be on the track in the top 10 shootout. We're back at the Yas Marina circuit for the first top 10 shootout of 2010. The time to beat belongs to James Courtney, Jim Beam Racing's 1:58.679.0. Will Davison, car 22, is on the run. Up through turn 3.
Look at Will Davo's car there. We've seen a lot of guys trying to settle the car down in the rear by using the implements in the rear of the car. I saw these guys fire a stiffer set of front springs into the car just before they sent it out. Now you think, what can the front of the car do to the rear? By stiffening the front of the car, stops it floating around, and you can actually lose a little bit of grip at the front, which will give you a little bit of grip at the rear.
Yeah, that's the normal sort of policy as he gets to the first sector at 0.2 of a second behind James Courtney. Basically the same as Jason Bright based on that lap time. But what you do is in the balance stakes, if you can't fix the back, then you can stiffen the front up to have a similar reaction. And in a heavy braking area, like we see at this circuit, where you can see Will Davison on board right now, heavy braking at the end of the fastest section of the track, a stiffer front spring will stabilise the car under brakes.
He's got a real job on his hands here in the final sector to mow down James Courtney's time.
That margin stayed about static though, hasn't it? So he gave away 2/10 and it stayed there. So that's just kind of matched him in that mid-section. The tyres may be coming in a little bit.
Check out this part of the circuit. Love it.
That was scary.
He used the gearbox hard then to slow the car down, Neil.
Yeah. Beneath the hotel. We had a lot of fog here early in the week, and that area that was constantly shaded stayed very damp until well into the day. No problem with that at the moment.
Didn't get onto the limiter anywhere near as hard as Courtney.
That was the AstroTurf you saw. James Courtney go across, final turn, grandstands both sides. Check out the view. Will Davison, second, 1:58.85. Good job.
P2 for that time. Courtney's a 58.7, so P2 at the moment. Good job.
That was a really good job.
he clawed a bit back as the lap progressed. Hey,
Well,
Will Neil Crompton, that was a nice job. Well done, P2, mate, and just a little less than 0.2 of a second to James.
Yeah, thanks guys. Yeah, it was not too bad a lap. It was very strict. We haven't done too many laps around here, so it's an experiment every lap we do. So, you know, it can always be better, but should be a relatively good starting spot for us.
Good work, Will. Best of luck in the race.
Thanks, boys. Should be some fun.
We hope so.
Thank you. Good.
What a season that man had last year. Second in the championship, Barry Sheen medalist. He took the fight right up to his former housemate Jamie Whincup the whole way. Good, clean racing. I had a chat to him at the season launch. And, you know, when people say they're jumping out of their skin, I mean, he was literally just chomping to get here. Mark Winterbottom. There's a lot of pressure on his shoulders for this season.
But there's more spring in his step than I've seen for a long time. Feels very encouraged by the way things have gone in testing, by the balanced behaviour and performance of this brand new car, and that all-important unknown X factor, which is the chemistry that you have with your engineer. He's got a great relationship with Campbell Little. They've worked together previously when they were both with Stone Brothers when Mark won the development series a number of years ago. So he's been enthusiastically reinforcing in the last couple of weeks. You know, I cannot wait to get into this. I really want to hook in.
He had 5 pole positions last year. He's always great to watch in qualifying. I love the look of the car this year. I was critical of the way it looked last year. The design and the look is very, very slick, and he will be on it. He's always 100% committed. He's done about the same lap time as Will Davison and Jason Bright at the first sector, so a couple of tenths down on Courtney. As I said, he puts 100% effort into these qualifying laps.
His conversion from qualifying, where we saw those wonderful pole position performances, and then the racing, there was a gap in the middle. What's going on here? We asked him a lot about that last year, and they had success on the Gold Coast. Look at that. Nice number. Car improving as it runs. So that's what they want to work on this year. He said the problem with the car was you could do a lap in it, but you couldn't do quick laps, plural. You just couldn't drive it that way consistently, and it puts you on the nervous edge, and then you make mistakes, things go wrong, and that's what they're focused on changing this year.
Tell you what, that was a killer second sector from him.
Yeah.
And that really brought him back into the picture. He was 0.2 of a second off Courtney's time. In fact, it was Bright's first split. Oh, that was the best. And now he's brought right back in here, down to turn 21. Mark Winterbottom.
Very committed there, Matt, into turn 19. Very sharp.
Here he comes. It's going to be close. It'll be really close for Winterbottom. What does Frosty do? Top of the list. 158.66.
Hey, nice. You're on pole, but you gave away 2 tenths in the first sector, so you had to make up for it pretty hard. Yeah, copy that. A bit different to drive, so always learning, mate.
Well, I think now the team's had their say, we can have a quick chat to Mark Winterbottom. You got me, Mark. It's Matty White here. Good job, and you really did have to put your head down in that second sector. All right, pull the plug on that one, so we'll let Frosty get back towards the garage. So 158.662, and that was remarkable. I mean, you drift out by 2 tenths at the end of the first sector, which is coming down towards turn 8. And we saw the guys go before him, Will Davison, James Courtney. It's not easy to claw back times around this circuit. 4.5 kilometres, and the final sector's a doozy.
And it's also one of those ones, Matt, where it's a good sign if the car comes on late in the lap. Normally, the better the car is, the better it is in the last part of the lap.
As Craig Lowndes warms his tyres here, I guess the warning shot these boys have fired to the rest of the pit lane is, of all the changes that we've seen to these cars, not just for this shootout, but in practice, the least amount of changes I've seen are in both those 888 cars. And again, for this top 10 shootout, no changes. They really just sit down with the drivers and focus on the lap.
He started his lap reasonably early too, Larko. He's hard on it. He tried to get that front tyre in. And as Craig Lowndes starts his lap, he certainly started the lap earlier than anybody else so far.
How's that margin? It's just 1/100th of a second between Mark Winterbottom and James Courtney.
Bit wide. It's a great shot up through turn 2 and had to use every bit of road. I love watching him qualify. He's absolutely out of control. He's got great car control. He used all the curb there at turn 4 and down through this corkscrew.
He plucked a gear coming out of turn 4, so he must have got back to first and then
slot.
some of them have been running through there in second. So he's used first to launch it and then grab second and run down the hill.
Pretty good first split, 0.06 down on Winterbottom. But Winterbottom obviously a little bit down in the first sector before, so Craig Lowndes will have to do the same thing as Mark Winterbottom in terms of doing a really good job here to gain some of that time back.
Here comes the marker for us, 103.747, 0.01. 1/100th of a second the difference between that and the man who's on provisional pole.
So, Craig's found pace there in the mid-sector too.
Very deep under brakes at the end of the back straight. Very, very deep. And again, this is this great section. Have a look at the car control through here. Fast right-hander. Look at it all. Got to feed it third gear to slow it down. Back to second and back to first. Bit of a slide there for Lowndes. Oh, big slide.
Yeah, it just broke away in the mid-corner then, didn't it? And then as he picked the throttle up, it protested. And again,
oh, big
and again.
slide.
Gone.
Nah, he will not be happy with himself there. Very oversteery. The car was very oversteery at the previous corner and just caught him out at turn 19. Be very angry with that.
And you know what's amazing? Is what a knife edge.
Complete the lap, just in case someone else spins off.
That's right, you've got to keep hustling. It's such a knife edge, folks, to understand what the difference is between being...
That's all my mistake, but we still have a miss.
So here it is again. It broke away from him here, and then he picked it up on the curb, and then when he made the direction change, it was a little bit like what we saw yesterday. It ends up being a pendulum problem. It's a big direction change. He slides it through 19, and then on the brake, actually the brake was what induced it.
Yeah.
It was already a bit loose in the rear. The nose pitches down, the weight moves forward, and it slid in the rear.
But a long way into the corner, Neil. Like, that's a long way into the apex when it finally turned around on him. As you pointed out, the brake actually did accentuate it. But it's one of those ones that's very, very hard when you're in that circumstance to get to where you are. So Mark Winterbottom, James Courtney, they're the fastest guys right now. This is fantastic. This is qualifying in Abu Dhabi.
Shane Van Gisbergen is the third last man out in the top 10 shootout here at the Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi. Leading the way is Mark Winterbottom. The time to beat 158.662. Van Gisbergen was quick in testing. He was the quickest man in practice. He did a 158.22.
He's using second gear there. We saw Craig use first. I spoke to him this morning, and he was really happy with the behaviour of the car. It feels that they've made genuine gain with development over summer. There or thereabouts on that split on the run to turn 8. He had to have a little late brake phase correction there. I mean, just as he was starting to get the car pointed at the corner, it all broke away. And that goes back to the point that I wanted to make before the break mark, that it's difficult to properly convey, isn't it? Just what a knife edge you're on when you try to drive quickly. The difference between being in control and looking good and basically being over centre and out of control is just it's a razor blade that you walk.
Absolutely nothing. And these qualifying laps really bring it out, don't they, Neil? And as 3 times on this lap, Shane Van Gisbergen's had some big moments. He's always 100% committed. And as I said, this is this fast section now where you've got to take the car into this double right-hander as hard as you can. Get it slowed up. And he's used second gear there. So a lot of the faster guys now using second gear.
That broke away in the mid-corner.
It did on a big slide. Same thing as Lowndes, but got away with it.
Very tricky section of track, using low gears, high revs, easy to excite the rear of the car. A lot of pitch change in the car as you move weight. Scary moments there at 18 and 19. And Van Gisbergen will be disappointed with that at a 59.5, down in 7th placing.
Paul Forgy just talking to him, and that will be probably a 5 or 6 tenths of a second mistake in turn 19, Neil. That was a big mistake.
Yeah, it has to make a damn of the lap. Front tyres come up a bit with the rest been off. Just didn't quite have the balance we had before.
Exactly the same spot as Craig Lowndes, but Lowndes went further off to the right and earlier on.
And it started earlier than that. It was actually a couple of corners back that the rot began to set in. Very similar to the thing that happened to Craig. Could be the way, what we just picked up in that radio conversation there too, the way in which they've started their tyre pressures and the way they come up through the lap.
And Neil, to add to that, the other thing that typically happens with these race cars, when you slide them like that, if you put an infrared sensor on them, the tyre temperature instantly goes up 10, 20, 30 degrees. So you carry that extra temperature and lack of grip into the next set of corners.
Also wonder too, would the circuit be any different there underneath that flyover bridge in between the Yas Hotel? And there's a big shady spot there. It's about the only shady spot on the circuit. 2 guys have gone off under there.
Shade's not something that's...
In plentiful supply around here.
And this guy is a very good qualifier. He's always very committed also. He's a great braker of the car. There's a couple of really big, heavy braking stops, as we've already said about this Yas Marina circuit. Mark Winterbottom looking on intently, because he'll be interested now with Garth Tander and Jamie Whincup to come in this top 10 shootout. As Tander sets himself up into turn 21 to get onto this straight. A very clean, purposeful exit is required to get the best run down into turn 1.
1:58.662 time to beat. First marker will be 40.8 for Tander. 5 pole positions and 6 race wins. Last year he finished the year with a bang.
It's quite a big direction change up there at turn 3, and they can't stay with the 100% throttle. They've got to dance the car on the throttle up the hill. Just a little over 40% of the lap is full throttle. So it tells you how much you've got to work your hands and feet around this track.
Didn't quite turn at turn 6, Neil, did it? Didn't quite get into the apex. Hard to get the car turned when you come down the hill like that. And slightly up on Winterbottom. That's about the same time as we saw with James Courtney. Very good time. Good exit out of there. Out of 9 through this kink at turn 10. And up to the fastest section, 265 kilometres an hour. And this is this heavy brake that I've been referring to. The Garth Tander has to get the car in deep into here. Now, a 3.6, that's the fastest second sector now. 1/10 of a second up on Mark Winterbottom.
This last third of the track, things get very busy. Basically from turn 11 all the way to the final corner, there's a lot of direction change, a lot of braking. A lot of partial throttle work.
He was a bit
just
wild.
got it in. No, he just got it in.
He's got Alistair McVean in his corner for 2010 in the engineering side. Under that bridge again he goes, and he slips it out wide.
It nicked off on the paint then, as he was actually well on the paint when he loaded the car. It didn't do it as bad as the 2 previous.
This has been a very typical Garth Tander lap. Aggressive and professional. Not to mention fast. But will it be fast enough to knock Winterbottom off the top? Yes, by 3/10 of a second.
Big number.
Awesome job, mate. Awesome job. P1, 58.35. Just cool those tyres down nice and gently, and watch for the scales on the way in, please.
That was Alistair McVean.
Front row, we'll take that. Good job, mate.
And we pick up there turn 19, as Neil said, off the paint and a big slide off the curb and the paint that made the car react with low rear grip when you do that. He got away with it, and it was a very good last sector to make a 3/10 of a second gain over Mark Winterbottom.
Hey, how's that for a challenge to this bloke?
Yeah, this bloke, he's been very good in qualifying.
Well, his number in qualifying to get in here was a 1:58.20. Best we just saw then from Garth Tander so far, 1:58.35.
So the only man who can stop the Holden Racing team from getting the first pole of 2010 is the man who's come across to Holden for 2010, Jamie Whincup.
This is what it's all about, Matty. These sorts of laps are just fantastic things to observe between the top two teams and the top drivers. As Winterbottom leads onto the straight. As Whincup leads onto the straight, sorry.
Off he goes, car number 1. Showed time and time again last year that every challenge was thrown in front of him, he was up for it.
See, when he grabbed third gear and you're on the run up to turn 3 there, notice how hesitant you've got to be on the throttle. You try and keep the rolling speed up, but you can't get stuck right into it. And these big direction changes down the hill through the corkscrew. This is turn 7.
Oh, how was that exit? Wow. Used every bit of road.
That's as wide as anyone's gone in the shootout. 40.77 is Tander's marker. 40.51 is Jamie's.
That was so deep under brakes, those rear wheels were locked.
Did you hear the chatter?
That is commitment.
Oh, it hooked up. It wouldn't actually come out of gear properly then. It actually stayed on the rev limiter, but that thing was absolutely Morse coding the rears on the way into the corner.
Fantastic effort to get out of 5 and 6. Yep, and still 0.2 of a second up. So now he's got to use his head, settle it down and get through this little complex without a mistake.
Well, he's given himself the buffer, hasn't he? First 2 sectors, brilliant. Here comes the tricky part.
Remember, Tanders was great too, Matt. He gained all that time back. So he...
That was really remarkable. To be that on the knife edge under brakes, still get it stopped and turned and to hold your margin. That was impressive. He could not have braked 1 millimetre later back there.
Now this is the spot. This is the spot. Got through there beautifully. Absolutely beautiful. Every bit of road as he comes up to turn 20 and 21. 2 final corners. We don't know yet on this last complex, difficult sector of the racetrack whether he's been able to do it.
And no matter what he's achieved in the last couple of years, there has to be pressure on him. And that's how a champion responds to pressure.
Yeah, nice work, mate. P1. Nice way to start the year, mate. Quickest in all sessions.
And fastest lap of the weekend.
Copy.
That's the best we've seen so far, a 1:58.1, the fastest V8 supercar lap of the weekend. Check out these images, the thing flying over the top of that curb.
Jamie Mark Scaife, that was an unbelievable effort. Great lap time, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Scaife. We've been working hard to get this car, even just to this event. So to be on pole, it's fantastic. It's an amazing place, and the long term the case.
Jamie, I know that you wanted your new challenge, but you would have felt that pressure. Is that just an almighty relief to get that one out of the way?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I must admit, a big question mark over on how we'd perform this weekend, and we've started off strong. We're not getting too carried away. A long way to go, but awesome start.
Hey, Jamie, it's Neil. What about that wild moment under brakes? We were holding our breath. You only just got it stopped.
Yeah, that's my style. That's how I roll.
That was good, mate. Well done.
Congratulations, Jamie.
Thanks, boys. Thank you.
How about that? He comes across with an enormous amount of challenges in front of him and the team, and he delivers in kind. The first man to claim pole for the V8 supercars at the Yas Marina circuit, so it's an all Holden front row, but the Fords are waiting to pounce. Winterbottom and Courtney look very, very fast, and they're here to mix it up. Davison, Will, that is, in position 5. His brother there, Alex, in position 8. And Craig Lowndes, after a spin-off in that top 10, will start from the 10th position. So we've got a race to come, 43 laps heading our way. Back after this. Well, 6 times last year, Jamie Whincup started from position number 1. And what a way to start 2010. He's done it again. In fact, last year, at the first race of the season, in a brand new car, Jamie started from pole position. Well, it's a carbon copy right here at the Yas Marina circuit. $2,500 in the bank from Armour All for Team Vodafone. He'll be alongside Garth Tander on the front row. Winterbottom and Courtney behind them. Davison and Bright there as well. Shane Van Gisbergen and Craig Lowndes. It was a cutthroat qualifying session, so you've got to go through to the top 10 first up or you miss out. Paul Dumbrell, in his first ever championship start in a Ford, A good effort from position 11. Todd Kelly will be looking for more out of his brand new Jack Daniels racer car number 7, and Daniel Gord and Tony Ricciardello starting from the rear of the field. But let's check in with Mark Larkham, who's got our pole sitter.
Jamie, stellar job, mate. But I've got to ask you, let's cut to the chase. I know you drive a Commodore at home now. I'm really interested to know what is the difference between driving the Commodore around here, or generally compared to the Falcon.
Hey, the car's a lot different. We're not exactly sure whether one's better or not, but I tell you what, the V6 wagon at home's doing a good job. But the race car, as far as qualifying goes, it's fantastic. Still a big question mark over its race pace. So we'll make some changes. We've got some extremely good engineers here that I'm sure will make a few changes for the race and see how we go.
Mate, aerodynamically, I guess, is probably the biggest difference to the Falcon. I mean, is that the area that you've got to tune the car, or is it really mechanical stuff?
Yeah, hey, we're still Team Vodafone, and we're still got the same guys, and we're still striving for the same results. And this year we've got clearly a different car, and the skin makes a huge difference. The way the car goes through the air is completely different to the other brand we had. So, we've got to change everything. All the shocks, the springs, the tyre pressures. We reinvented the wheel at the test day a couple of weeks ago, and we come out strong, which is just an awesome feeling. These guys, honestly, they've done a stupid amount of work to get the car actually just here. To be on pole is really special.
Great job, mate. After your racing career, you'll make a great car salesman. Well done.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.